Just 3 days after Russia invaded Ukraine, Kosovo requested accelerated membership in NATO. The horrors of war in very recent memory, the country's president can relate closely to Ukraine's situation. And the president of Kosovo, Vjosa Osmani, joins us now live from Kosovo's capital, Pristina. It's good to have you. Thank you for joining us. Kosovo has been waiting for NATO membership for some years now. Why? Why is it so important for your country?
It is not just important for my country. I believe that in the wake of the events unfolding after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, everyone understands that to be in NATO means to be safe. So practically the main reason that the people of Kosovo and our vision as institutional leaders of Kosovo are moving towards making Kosovo a member of NATO is because of safety and security, but also because we don't see NATO simply as a military machine, but we see NATO as a values-based system. Back in 1999, NATO nations, NATO allies did not stand still while the people of Kosovo were being oppressed and were at the same time being victims of genocide by the Milosevic forces. And of course, 1999 is an example of how when the world stands together and when democracies stand together, you can actually lead a people towards freedom and independence. So NATO represents the values which are so fundamental, that are at the very fabric of our society. And as I said, it also means safety and security for this part of the world that has suffered so much because of dictatorships and hegemonic regimes that were led by Serbia.
Earlier this year, you wrote to US President Joe Biden, as I understand it, to ask for his support in Kosovo's bid to join NATO. What was his response, and how optimistic are you that Washington has Kosovo's back?
We are absolutely optimistic that Washington has Kosovo's back, because Washington has always had Kosovo's back. In early 90s, in 1999 during the war, right after the war, in our very resilient path towards building freedom and independence, and even nowadays when Kosovo is strengthening its statehood and its bids for international memberships, we have already heard public statements by US officials that they will be supporting our bid to initially join Partnership for Peace, which is kind of an initial step towards NATO, and at the same time work with us to strengthen our army based on NATO standards. Obviously, we do understand that decisions within NATO are taken with unanimity, and 4 countries out of the 30 allies in NATO have not recognized our independence yet. But we are working, and so is the US, helping us out in this regard to make sure that we convince all partners that NATO will only be stronger with countries like Kosovo who believe in the same values and who want to contribute. Now, 23 years after the war, we want to give back to the world, which is why we have adopted sanctions against Russia immediately after the invasion of Ukraine. We have opened up for Ukrainian refugees so that we can help out to those in need. We are sheltering Ukrainian journalists. We are deploying forces together with the United States all around the world so that we can give back and we can contribute not just to peace, security and stability in the Balkans, but also beyond.
It's Spain, Greece, Romania and Slovakia, all NATO members, who do not recognize Kosovo. And of course, Kosovo not a member of the EU either, but you have said that it plans to formally apply to join the EU by the end of this year. Now, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz a few weeks ago said that both Kosovo and Serbia could only become EU members if they recognize each other as independent states. Is that likely from your perspective?
Obviously, mutual recognition is the centerpiece of the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia, and the sooner Serbia comes to its senses and understands that Kosovo's independence and sovereignty is an irreversible reality, the better for them and the better for our bilateral relations, as well as for peace and stability, long-term peace and stability for the entire region. So I do hope that Serbia will break away and deal with its past, but most importantly, break away from the Milosevic legacy and understand that we can only move together as a region towards the European Union once mutual recognition with Kosovo happens. Obviously, we're doing everything and we're giving our best to make sure that this happens as soon as possible. But we do understand that as a merit-based process, the EU enlargement process can take years. But as Kosovo, we have never looked elsewhere. Our Euro-Atlantic integration is the only path that we have chosen. We
Right.
have never looked elsewhere, and we don't believe in the notion that Serbia moves kind of forward with, where they try to walk both on the Moscow path as well as the EU path. You obviously can't walk on two paths at once. So when it comes to NATO, obviously 4 members have not recognized us yet, but I believe that right now, in the wake of what's going on with Ukraine and understanding what is Russia's aim towards Europe as a whole, but especially towards the Western Balkans, which Putin talks so much about, we need to look at the enlargement perspective for Kosovo and Bosnia-Herzegovina also from a security lens, from a security point of view. Whereas for the European Union, now that they've invited Ukraine and Moldova, this is a great message also for the Western Balkans that they're looking at the enlargement as a geostrategic initiative as well.
And I want to get to that point, and I need you to be quite brief on the answer, if you don't mind. This is absolutely fascinating.
Absolutely.
Look, there have been questions raised about just how difficult this application for EU membership process is. Do you, I mean, these countries have been involved in this since, Western Balkans countries have been involved since the early 2000s in trying to get this membership. Do you believe an EU enlargement needs to be redefined, or certainly the approach needs to be reorganized at this point?
Yes, and I believe the EU is already doing that because with the decision on Ukraine and Moldova, they've put the geostrategic decision-making process as the priority. So while the bureaucratic path is important, the merit-based process is important, the criteria are important, we should never forget that it's the values, the fundamental values of the European Union that should give direction to everything. We have proven years ago, Ukraine is proving nowadays, that we were ready, and Ukraine is now ready to put our lives on the front line in order to defend the values for which the EU stands, which is why we belong there, and I hope the EU will let us in.
Right. With that, we have to leave it there. It's been good having you on. Your perspective is really important, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.